I personally believe that being an entrepreneur in any capacity is the most spiritual thing that you can do.
I see lots of people coming into business and it's glamorized idea, you'll have all this time. It's nothing like that.
There's literally 8 billion different perceptions, but that also means there's 8 billion different versions of truth.
From the outside, I would say most of us look like we're pretty well put together. On the inside, we're definitely not really well put together.
I really believe in humanity, and I really do believe in people. If you can get to that level of gratitude, your world will be completely different.
The truth is, most of the time, if you open your heart, that most people want to help.
Your reality is defined by your personality. And what we forget is we are the epicenter of it all.
Welcome to the Trailblazers, the space where high-achieving women finally exhale and feel deeply understood.
We are Brittany Anderson and Disha Solanki, two leaders who have built, scaled, exited, and supported multi-8 and 9-figure companies
while carrying far more than most people ever see.
Here we go where most conversations stop.
The burnout, the pressure, the ambition, the identity shifts, the invisible load, and the moments you almost quit.
This is where the real story begins.
Trailblazers.
My guest today is Kirsty Tait. Kirsty's worked for years alongside founders and senior leaders in high-growth tech through executive search. And her work now is all about connection, clarity, and building in a way that feels sustainable as a human. Today, we're talking about the messy middle, that in-between season where the old version of you doesn't fit anymore, but the new one isn't fully here yet. Kirsty, welcome. I wanted to start with something that you'd written to me, and I keep thinking about, to be honest. And it was about how, because it resonates with me, if I was totally transparent, and a lot of the listeners, I can only assume, about how your old identity doesn't fit, but your new one isn't fully here yet, and you're in the season of change. And I would love to know more about what does that look like?
Honestly, I think it's something that, people never talk about. People never talk about the middle piece. They talk about like the before story and the hero's journey and like where they're at now. And maybe it's like they've manifested the million or the perfect partner or whatever goal aspiration it is. But no one talks about the middle piece. And the middle piece is the hardest. It's the messiest. It's the most confusing. And I don't think people give enough honesty around that part. I think that a lot of people just kind of put that piece under the mat and don't talk about it, when actually that's where, for me, all of the gold is. It's where you have the realizations. It's where you have the breakdown, breakthrough, whichever word you want to use. It's where you have the fears coming up. It's where you see the patterns of your old self, but yet you're still carrying out some of those patterns, whether that be addiction, self-sabotage, unworthiness, or whatever it may be. And you are kind of in this observation stage and you don't understand where you're at, but you know you're going through it. And it's really interesting because you've become the witness, but you've not yet got to the version that you know you're becoming. And the old version is still very present, and it's how do you amalgamate the two?
Where did you feel it the most? Like when you thought, was it a conscious thing? Like I know from my perspective that, I actually think I've been through a few messy middles, if I was honest. I
Yeah.
don't know if there's like one moment in life where I could go, oh, that was messy, and that was it, total defining moment, if you know what I mean. Like, I think there's been a few when I look back now. Would you agree with that? Or what did you see in yourself that you thought, I can't actually keep going forward like this as a human?
Yeah, I think, honestly, I don't think we leave the messy middle. I think we just define it in different categories and then go into a new messy middle. And creation comes out of chaos. And if you think how a baby's conceived and the actual scientific conception and the chaos that it creates to form this beautiful miracle, I think that we really underestimate that messy middle piece. I think that is life. I think that is the journey. And I think that we need to honor that piece more because we're so as humans wanting to get to the next stage, and we want to get to the goal, and we want to get to the big house, and we want to get to the family or whatever it is, that the messy middle is life. It's the day to day. It's the having a breakdown, making a cup of tea because you're overwhelmed and you have no idea why you are overwhelmed, but you keep going anyway. And I think, especially as women, like we really undervalue that piece because we're so used to it. And we see it as chaos and we see it as messy, and things are supposed to be very neat and very tidy and very orderly. And you're not supposed to have any mess. And we're told as kids, keep your room clean. And it's like, well, how am I supposed to keep my room clean when I'm a pirate and I'm trying to take over like the seas? What do you mean? And I think as adults, we're just so ingrained that things have to be in order. And the messy middle is a piece we really don't honor and don't understand and don't allow ourselves to go through that. And I think it's life. I think it's literally how life is like for everyone. There's no person that gets away without having those messy middle pieces. And if they aren't acknowledging them, then they're lying to themselves.
And I also think, I've got 2 teenagers myself, and I think that society, culture, movies, I think life is really glamorized a lot in terms of what does an ideal look like, right? And I always say to my kids, like, there's no ideal. You have to build resilience. And in order to build resilience, you have to go through something, right? If everything in life was plain sailing, then it would be easy. That's the truth of it. And I always say to myself now, and I don't know if it's something that comes as you get a bit older, that I'm always a work in progress. I'm never going to be the finished article at any point. And I don't really know if there is anyone who can honestly say, unless you're a teenager, of course, because, they know everything about everything. I don't know if you're aware of this. So they're never a work in progress. But I think as you get older, I think that you reflect and there's always something to learn from every day. And it could be some small interaction that you have as well.
Yeah, and I think that you are 100%. You're always learning, and the more you learn, the less you know, and then you're like, ah, and it becomes even more of a beautiful journey or a chaotic journey, depending at where you are. Because for me, the more that I've kind of gone deeper into personal development or spirituality, even on like the body side, neurology and bioscience and biochemistry, the more that I learn, the more that I realize I do not have a clue, and it's impossible to learn it all. So the work in progress is okay. And everyone is so obsessed with that next goal. Like, okay, now I need to be whatever. And it's about the journey. It really is. And this is something I'm learning so deeply that sits with me, that there is no goal that will ever define you. You can tick off the author, you can tick off the podcast host, you can tick off the entrepreneur, you can tick off the mum, the dad, the brother, the best man, the whatever. That will never fully define who you are, because they're just identities that we create, and they're just names, and they're just tags and labels. And we love a label. We love a label. In society, we love a label. And we believe that is what we should be. And I think actually teenagers have probably got it more right, because they're like, no, just doesn't sit with me, not doing it. And we try and put people in boxes, and we do it through all stages of life, like whether you're a parent, whether your parents did it to you, whether you did it by trying to defy your parents about not being in that box and putting yourself in a different type of box. And we do it as entrepreneurs, and we do it as friends, and political and spirituality and religion. And I think that is where we get confused in who we truly are.
And I do believe that those labels that I think we're guilty of putting them on ourselves a lot is so that we fit in somewhere in society. So we can say, oh, we belong here or we belong there. When in reality, it may be that you belong in lots of different places, and that's okay.
Yeah. And I think it's like, it's tiring. It's tiring to put all of that pressure on yourself. Like, and to have these checklists and these goal lists. And for me, I used to have big goals and big dreams. And now I have a list I do every year. I do 100 things I want to experience, because I think experiences are completely different than goals. There is still a couple of monetary ones in there, like experience becoming the millionaire. I haven't got to that goal yet, and that is something that is still an experience I want to experience, but I've put it more on the, what does that feel like? Is that going to feel, rather than having the $1 million in the bank and then just ticking it off? Because I think that this is where people get a little bit lost on those labels, is it's like, well, why? Like, why do you even want to be a parent? Why do you want to be a mum? Why do you want to be a dad? A lot of people don't know that. They're just like, well, I just want kids. And it's like, okay, cool. Well, kids are very expensive and they're very annoying. Like, have you actually thought about that? Like,
They're life changing.
and I'm sure they're very beautiful. I'm not a mother, so I can't say, but obviously the miracles and everything like that. But people don't think about the whole idea of having kids, and they don't discuss that with their partners either. They have one conception, their partner has another conception, and the two very rarely meet before actually the act happens. And then you find you've got two very different parenting styles because both of you had a preconceived idea of what that might look like.
And I also think that's very true in business as well. I see lots of people coming into business and it's glamorized idea, you'll have all this time, you'll be able to, it's nothing like that, right? In reality, many people are not cut out to be in business and many people don't know what it actually involves, right? You're always going through highs and lows, swings and roundabouts. And from the outside, I would say most of us look like we're pretty well put together. On the inside, we're definitely not really well put together, okay? I mean, and it means that you have to accept that your priorities will change at different times or different seasons of the year, however you might frame that for yourself too, right? And many people come into business, and I have met many of these, and I didn't expect this. And many times I say, you probably will be broke for a bit before you make quite a lot. Are you cut out for that? Because if you're not, then you shouldn't even like begin in this whole journey at this point. Or you have to find a way of making two things work, right? Having a day job and a side hustle that you're bringing up and it flourishes, but that will come at a cost somewhere else in your life.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, especially nowadays, it's made to seem so easy, like Instagram and YouTube and all these multimillionaires. And actually, to run a successful project is one thing, and to run a successful business is a completely different kettle of fish. And I personally believe that being an entrepreneur in any capacity is the most spiritual thing that you can do, because the faith that you have to have in something beyond yourself, whether that's your product, whether that's your business acumen, whether that is in God or the universe or whatever word you want to use, to have that unwavering faith to get up even when you don't want to do the things. And there's a lot of things, especially when you're a small business owner and when you're just starting out, like you have to be the marketer, you have to be the accountant, you have to be the CEO, the CFO, the salesperson, you have to wear multiple hats and learn things very quickly. And it's very hard to translate unless someone else has been through it and understands. And for your friends that are in a job and get paid a very steady paycheck and don't really have to do anything outside of the hours that they're working, it's very hard to explain why you'd even want to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
Yeah, and why you want to put yourself through the ringer and put yourself in that financial box. Because, I mean, the majority of business owners, even from like the multi-million billionaires, they all started out from, I mean, it's very well known, Microsoft started from Bill Gates's garage.
Yeah.
All of these huge companies, 9 times out of 10 were started from nothing. And it's very hard for people to even translate that now because they're worth billions and they have names all around the world. But at some point they were in the same position. And to be an entrepreneur, you have to have that faith that it will go well. And 9 times out of 10, it's not going to go well. And that is entrepreneurship. And that is being a business owner. It's about overcoming failure. It's not the success. And that's what most people don't realize. It's nothing to do with success. It's being able to handle failure and to keep going.
Kirsty, what are you doing differently now without even trying compared to what you were before? Because you're very well versed in tech, working with executive leadership teams. And you've come into a much more spiritual version of yourself, is the way that I see it. And correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I agree. And honestly, it's the biggest thing I have learned that has helped me in any capacity is attachment and letting go of it. And just really believing that I know what's best for me and let it go of any outcome. So, regardless of whether that's with a client, whether that's with a friend, or whether that's with a partner. My nan told me when I was little, and she was like, if you never have any expectations, you'll never be disappointed. And I always really understood it, but I didn't necessarily truly live by it. But I really did understand it as a kid. And I used to say it to people all the time when I was like a teenager, and people just didn't agree with me. And I was like, but it's true. Like, if I'm not excited about winning the lottery, then if I don't win the lottery, I'm not going to be upset about it. Like, if a boy doesn't ask me out on a date, who cares? It doesn't matter. If he does, amazing. But I think that attachment to certain outcomes, and don't get me wrong, I still get attached to certain things, but it's the awareness of it and coming back to center and coming back to yourself and saying, no, that doesn't define my worth. That doesn't define my ability to be a leader. That doesn't define my ability to be partner, mum, boss, whatever it is. That for me has been the biggest realization that just alleviates so much stress. Like, it's gonna work out. It's gonna work out regardless. Like, everything is working out, and even all of the failures are working for me so that I can learn the lesson for the next jump.
No, I totally agree with you. And funnily enough, my grandma used to say the same thing, right? And as I've grown older, I think that maybe it's got something a little bit to do with ego. And most of us don't think that we have an ego, but when we start getting attached to things and you become aware of it, I'm like, huh, maybe that is a bit of an ego thing because you're expecting everything to work out. And that says something about you, right? Because you shouldn't expect something to work out 100% of the time. Like I say to my daughter, I was like, she was like, oh, I want to get 8s and 9s for my GCSEs. And I was like, oh, fantastic. Honestly, I had to say I don't remember the last time I scored anything like that in the last 20 odd years or 30 years. Let's make it 30 years, okay? So you shouldn't put that pressure on yourself because it will probably just come if you just go with it. Do the steps, like you just said, about being in entrepreneurship. Get up, do the steps, and the success will come. But you just have to understand that you have to go through the motion of it, and then refine and redo. Anyway, sorry, Kirsty, I digress. So I'll go back to the ego thing. And I think when I started analyzing what my grandma said, I think she was really saying, just let your ego drop because then you won't be disappointed. The next step's going to come. You just don't know what it is yet. But if you hit a brick wall and you were expecting something, then you don't know now what the next step could have been.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And we have it's the expectations on the goals, it's not setting the goals. And I think you made that very clear there because it's still important to have the forward driver,
Yeah.
but just not because how many times have people rerouted? I mean, Listerine was floor cleaner. Like, I know that's a very random example, but they rerouted and now they're a multi-million-dollar business. And it's really about that ego and having that attachment. Like, and we get very obsessed with our ideas and
Yeah.
especially in the spiritual world, the download was for me. And it's like, well, how many people have had a download about a chair? How many chairs are there in the world? But how many people have been successful off of making chairs? I mean, even in your house alone, you're likely to have an office chair, dining chairs, sofas, garden chairs, probably maybe bar stools, whatever. So all these different types of chairs. And if the one person who created a chair had such an attachment to it just being theirs, then the world would be very, very different. I mean, we wouldn't even be able to have this conversation. Like, people get obsessed with owning things and the attachment, and that's where definitely the ego comes in, and you really have to check yourself. And I believe you're given an idea because it is meant for you. However, if you don't act on it, that idea is supposed to be put into fruition, so someone else will do it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. What do you not have the patience for anymore that you maybe used to have the patience for? And I ask this because Brittany and I were talking about things that we thought on a podcast like a couple of weeks ago, where we thought of things that we thought were really cool. And one of them was titles, right? And now I'm like, I don't have patience for titles. And I actually don't care.
Honestly, I've never really had a patience for much, so it's quite funny to me because I have even littler patience now. Really, it is people's perception of themselves, and that sounds pretty harsh, but what I mean by that is there are very few people who are open to seeing themselves in a different light. And for me, that is where the growth is. That is where, and don't get me wrong, I am resistant sometimes and I am very like, no, 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 I need to do it my way. And I've had mentors and they're like, Kirsty. And I'm like, I know, but I know, and I just want to learn it for myself. But I think we overemphasize on exactly what we've been saying, those titles, those perceptions, those identities. And I have very little patience with people trying to define themselves to me because for me, I know who you are. You're a person with an amazing heart. You're an incredible mother. You're an incredible friend. Like for me, that's what's important. So if someone's really trying to be in that space of over identification, I really struggle with that.
When you say that, what do you mean? Like, do they come to you? I'd love to know, like, what kind of words or sentences they come to you with.
I mean,
Explanations, maybe.
yeah, like it's really it shows up differently in different people, but I mean, America is an over example of this at the moment in terms of political or racial or spiritual views. And it's about not believing that your own view can change. And people really want to cling on. And it comes down to fear. They want community. And this is the beauty in the other side of it is they just want community and they want to be around people that they believe that thinks like them, but they're not open to that perception being changed. And I feel like in America that is amplified quite substantially and is a good example of that rather than the micro side of things. But if we can really take stock of ourselves and see where we're at and see if our beliefs are even real to us, because usually they're just pre-constructed behaviors that we've learned somewhere along the line, we check in with our own truth. For me, that's what's most important. Like, what is true to you? And is it actually true to you? And taking the time to honor yourself in that process. Because there's so much noise about everything, especially now. Like, you scroll on Instagram for 5 minutes, you've seen maybe over 100, 200 reels of different information of whatever your algorithm is showing you. It's a lot for us to take in. And how do you then start to discern what is true for you?
I also believe that the basis of that beliefs is many people don't know where they came from. So they don't know if it's true to them. It may be something that hit their ears, but they don't know the basis of that. And a question I've started asking recently is, and what experience led you to believe that, right? Because so much, like, I don't know, sometimes I hear so much rubbish and I'm just like, wow, how did you come to that conclusion all by yourself, right? Something either really awful happened or you're living in ignorance or what is it? And 9 times out of 10, Kirsty, it's not actually experience that's led them to the belief system that they have right now. It's ignorance and it's the lack of knowledge that they have, and they can't let other people just be. There seems to be a control thing going on that everyone should be alike and the same, when really the truly beautiful thing about humans is that we're all very different.
Yeah, there's literally 8 billion different perceptions, but that also means there's 8 billion different versions of truth. And that's what a lot of people cannot comprehend, that actually we are all so individual because you can, and I mean, they've done tests on this in twins where
Right.
they've gone in and they studied there and they've been brought up obviously exactly the same and they've gone down two very different paths because their preconception and their conception of how they experienced life were completely different. So it's very hard to have anything but your own truth. I mean, question I often ask in my workshops, is the sky blue? Is the sky blue?
It looks it to me, but it depends what day of the week it is.
Exactly. You live in the UK. It's not often blue.
Right, like today was slightly blue, but the cloud's out now, and I was like, oh, it's looking a bit grey at this point.
Exactly, but that's the thing, and then if it's a beautiful sunset, it's pinks and it's yellows and it's purples, and actually, if you look at the scientific definition, the diffraction of the light and what the colours, it isn't actually blue at all, and then some people believe that it's a reflection of the sea, others believe that the sea is a reflection of the sky, and again, if you asked a blind man or even a colorblind person what color is the sky, then they're going to have a very different answer. So, one question that is very simple, as in, is the sky blue, can then be defined in multiple different versions for people. There's also an indigenous tribe that doesn't even believe in the color blue. They believe there's over 1,000 different variations of green. So, blue doesn't even exist in their color chart. So, for them, the sky would be green and it would be this very specific tonality of green. And because they've been this indigenous tribe that has been, I can't remember the name of the tribe, but they've been living their ways for thousands of years, they have that very specific color of green that the sky would be. But if you told someone from the UK the sky's green, they're going to call you out on it and give you all of the reasons whilst it's blue. So it's a very silly but very profound example of how we come to different realities with something that you would think had a universal truth.
It's interesting what you said about the twin study. So I was lucky enough to listen to Dr. Gabor Mate speak in person, and I have a huge amount of respect for him and his work. And one of the questions I always had was like, you see siblings, I've got two children of my own. I'm always like, God, they're so different and they've got the same parents. And very interestingly, he said they have the same name parents, but you were a different parent to each of those children at different points in their life. And I thought, you're right. You're absolutely right, because we're all in different situations, different messy middles between two kids that we've got. And so, of course, they had different experiences, different perceptions of their parents, different relationships with each one of us, and all of those things. So it's very interesting what you said to me about that twin study, because Gabor Mate says something very similar, actually.
And there's been quite a few different studies from different and like renowned professionals. I'm pretty sure Harvard did a study around the twins and nature versus nurture. And another one of the studies as well was that parents are quite often unaware of they believe that they're treating them equally, but usually there's a naughty twin or the good twin. And even just saying that one time, that can bring on the characteristics to the child of acting in accordance with that. So you could believe you were giving the same love to both of them, but you are exactly what you just said. You're perceiving them different because they are different humans and they are separate. And I would even go down with, if you were a conjoined twin, that experience would be completely different as well. Like, because the way that people touch people, the way that your responses are, like everything comes down to your own personal perception. And I can give you quite an extreme example of this. So I had some sexual abuse in my past, and it was something that I kind of became a bit used to. And a friend called me on her lunch break, or on my lunch break, sorry, and she was in bits, and I was like, what's happened? And she was just getting off of the bus, and she worked at the top. Her bus used to come into the top of my street where I worked, and she was inconsolable. She was like, I've just come off the bus, can you come and meet me? And ran from work and ran up the street and went, and I was like, what has happened? And she was like, this guy just put his hand up my skirt on the bus, and she was an inconsolable mess. And rightly so. But at the time, I didn't understand that. And I was like, you've just taken me out of work for this. Because my perception was completely different, because I had been touched and had other things happen to me that for me, that wasn't even a bad thing. And I, like, now looking at it, she was so right in her thing, but I couldn't even offer her potentially the love and the care that she needed in that moment because of my own experience.
Yeah.
And that always sits with me in how people perceive things, because you never know what someone's been through and you never know how. And you will react to their reaction as well. And that's really important, especially with your loved ones, because if you don't understand your own behaviors and your own set of constructs, showing up for other people in your life can also be challenging.
Absolutely. And, ultimately, we all operate from our own operating systems, and you had a different normalized operating system at that time to the one that your friend did. And it was hard for you to show empathy, which I'm sure in reflection doesn't sit well with you now.
No.
At the time, you were probably pretty pissed off about it, and you wanted to maybe say, just get on with it to a certain degree. It's not as bad. And then you had a lot of other things that you could have said after the as bad.
Yeah, and it was also a beautiful reflection for me because I did catch myself in that moment, like not kind of, I didn't say anything to her at the time, like about being pissed off, but I realized actually, like, why am I not having any empathy right now? Like, why, like, she was a mess. She was absolutely like inconsolable. And I'm really frightened and taken aback. And I was like, that should be the normal reaction actually. And why have I never experienced that reaction? So yes, it was a mix of emotions because it did give me the ability to reflect on that and be like, okay, some of the experiences that I've had, maybe they weren't right. And maybe I should have had more of a reaction like that and been able to process it in a different way. And especially when it is a subject like sexual abuse, I have had a lot of friends experience in different forms and different capacities. It is one of the hardest subjects to talk about. And it's also one of the hardest subjects to understand because unless it is your experience, it is very hard to define. Because again, exactly what we're talking about around how those conversations show up, how empathy shows up in those conversations, because for so long it's been like, well, was she wearing a short skirt? Well, what has that got to do with? She was just going home from work. Like,
Right.
nothing to do with it. So it's very interesting. And this is why I believe in self-development in any capacity and understanding that operating system, because the more that you can understand that operating system and why your behavior is showing up, it will define everything. It will define how you show up in your business. It will define how you're showing up at home, how you're showing up to your friends, how you're showing up across a podcast, or whatever way. And I think it is the most important thing as a human we can do. And it is becoming more understood, I suppose. Is that the right phrase? For companies to look at their employees as people as opposed to an employee. It's more common for people to be going to therapy to understand their own minds, to take on the personal development books. I mean, Tony Robbins is having thousands of people in a room now, which is incredible. And I think people are really starting to understand the psychological aspect of themselves, which allows us to then come together and understand each other.
Thank you for sharing, Kirsty. I would love to know more about what are you wanting more of right now?
Honestly, I'm greedy. I like to do it all. More experiences, I haven't experienced, more opportunities to be having amazing conversations like this. I really believe in humanity and I really do believe in people. And I believe that you can hear the same thing 100 times. And on that 101st time, when the penny drops, you can have such a beautiful experience to understanding more about you, more about the world. And I just want the opportunity for more people to have the possibility to have that experience.
I love that. Thank you. What does your new version of you look like? Or I don't even like saying new, evolved version of you, because you do say old identity, but I got the feeling that you're kind of evolving. And so you don't have a final goal of a new human, if you know what I mean. Or a new,
Yeah, honestly, I struggle with that a little bit. And I have a couple of mentors, and they're like, well, you need to define who you want to be that person. And I understand that. But I'm also so open to possibility. I don't even know if I know that version. So the last 2 years of my life have been very much living like Michael Singer and the surrender experiment, and just seeing where I end up and who comes into my peripheral. And again, we got connected in a very beautiful way. And the way that I got connected through the lady that connected us, Jen, is also very beautiful. So I struggle with that answer. I, from a personal standpoint, I want to be able to lead more with my heart and be in a capacity to do so. And that's pretty much it. And in terms of that evolved version, I would love, as I said, the millionaire is next on my goal list, but that's just a fun thing to do. It's not really like something I necessarily want to be a millionaire. It's just, yeah, leading with that heart, learning about myself so that I can help others learn about themselves. For me, that's the perfect, like, evolved version is to just constantly keep growing in that capacity, and then let the awe and the magic of the world tell me what next label they're going to give me, because I think that's pretty cool.
What do you really care about right now?
Micro moments. I'm really trying to learn to be present with loved ones. I'm visiting my parents at the moment, and it's the longest that I've got to spend with them in well, maybe 16, 17 years. So micro moments like saying good morning, and not just with loved ones, with strangers as well. I was at a funeral on Monday, and the celebrant was amazing and a really incredible guy. And the way that he was defining kind of life. And what I then noticed with all of the speeches of the kids of the gentleman that passed away, it's those micro moments. It's that random morning that someone will remember with their mum or their dad when something funny happened or something like that. So I'm really trying to experience more of those micro moments, because I think they're the ones that we actually remember and make way more of an impact than some of the bigger cool things.
And I totally agree with you on that. Like, my thing for this year is just to enjoy where we are for the moment, because even as entrepreneurs and women, I think we're very guilty of living in the future a lot, because
Yeah.
planning what's happening next, and we don't just stop and take stock of what's going on right now. Like, the most ridiculous thing, like yesterday I was loading the dishwasher, and then I looked up and I was like, oh wow, the sky looked so beautiful yesterday. It was like hues of pink and blue. It was absolutely gorgeous. Anyway, I had to say it out loud, and I stopped everybody in the kitchen. I was like, no one's looking out the window, no one's looking out the window, because they're all doing random stuff. And then they all stopped and they're like, Mom, did you really stop us to look out the window? I was like, yeah, because you're going to miss it. Like, how many times do you clap eyes on a sky like that? I mean, in England, I mean, come on. It's
Yeah.
refreshing to look out the window and not see rain and see a clear sky and the sun going down at, like, you know, 5:45 or something like that. And I think a lot of us, I realize, live in a state of high anxiety, me included. And anxiety is always at what's coming, what's happening next. And, you know, I'm always on to the next thing rather than just stop and go, what's happening right now and what can we be grateful for? And I'm always grateful. I'm not saying that I'm not that human, but it's really cementing the memory rather than just going, oh, that's nice, and continuing.
Yeah, and when you come into that, like, that moment, you can actually feel the gratitude, because I never understood feeling gratitude. I was like, I am grateful, but that when that heart opens and that gratitude just drops in, for especially like for me, a sunset is like the top tier. Yeah, and that heart opens and you just feel yourself go, ah, like that that is the goal every day. Even if you just feel it for 3 seconds once a day, if you can get to that level of gratitude, your world will be completely different.
You mentioned once that you accidentally took too much acid, I want to say. I would love to know, what impact did that have on you and what was going on in your life at that time?
So it was huge. For me, it was the awakening. I don't really like that word as such as it is used, but it's an awakening to more. And At the time, it was 2021, and at the beginning of 2021, it was January, I just sold my house, or my friend had bought me out. So I had moved back in with my mum and dad, and I didn't know where I wanted to live next. And I was like, right, I'm going to build the business to a certain level so that I can choose anywhere I want to live. So I just hired two new guys for my company at the time, and they started the day before. And I'd read this article about Silicon Valley entrepreneurs microdosing and coming up with these amazing concepts. And I'd read up about Steve Jobs and all of this, and I didn't really know anything about psychedelics. And I asked a friend to get me some psilocybin, not understanding that synthetic psilocybin, magic mushrooms, is acid. And she got me some, and she told me to take 2 drops. And anyway, I took 2 droppers, which is not the amount she told me, but I didn't understand that at the time. And
Yeah.
I planned to write my business plan, and I was in my mum and dad's house, and it was a Tuesday, it was a Tuesday evening, and I had my notebook next to me. I had Think and Grow Rich next to me, and I was going to write my business plan. And like, okay, this is the direction we're going. Just brought on 2 new extra guys. We've got the capacity to hire 2 more next month. Like, okay, let's go. Again, the universe had other plans, and this is where I now surrender, because my version of wanting to create a business plan was not quite what everything else had in store for me. So yeah, I mean, I went on a very deep journey, and for me, there was no two ways about what I saw was true. And I went into a load of different realities, concepts, construct. I knew what was light and dark. I knew what consciousness was. I'd never even heard that word before. I knew what all my old past lives were. I knew how we were all one. I understood what pure love meant, and experienced like this love and this warmth that I'd never ever experienced before. It was like an all-encompassing, beautiful experience. And then, yeah, as I said, it was a Tuesday, so I went into work on the Wednesday and was like, I didn't really know what to do with myself. But then I became addicted to the seeking of knowledge, whether that was from books, whether that was from podcasts, whether that was from more experiences like that. And I realized that the life that I had built was not necessarily the life I wanted. So I went into a bit of a psychosis, because I had no one to talk to about any of this. And I didn't know other people had experiences like this. It was very new to me. None of my friends really got it. And then I started to kind of find some spiritual friends, and they didn't even get it. And I was like, okay, they've been spiritual for 25 years and they have not got a clue about what I'm talking about. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm on my own here. So I went into kind of like this beautiful psychosis that I can say now. And I can also understand how people can go through this duality of different experiences. And it's that whole thing about identity. Like, I was so attached to this old identity. I was an atheist. I didn't believe in anything. I believed in being a business person, but I didn't really know what that meant. And it was then having my reality 180'd was confusing, and it was very traumatic, to be honest. It was very intense. It was a lot of crying. It was a lot of like constriction, all whilst running a business. I mean, at the time I had 3 employees, so it was a small business, but I still had to show up every day, and I was going through all of this, and I didn't know who to talk to. But it was the biggest blessing that I could have ever experienced, and it opened me up into a new world that I didn't know existed. And now things just don't really matter. Life, and it's beautiful, and we get to experience those micro moments and those sunsets. And I don't know at what point people say the Matrix, and I don't know what point I stepped out of it, but just not having that stress every day. So I was so stressed. I was working like 16, 17 hours a day. I was just trying to grind and hustle, and really trying as well. I was just grinding for the sake of grinding, because being in the office longer meant that I cared more about the business.
When you know deep down that's not true.
No.
It sounds like you were shedding whatever happened before in order to move into what you are now, let's say, and give yourself space. It almost sounds like that to me.
Yeah, but what people don't realize is, yes, that experience happened, and I completely 180'd overnight on my views, but then it took probably until now, like I would say within the last 6 months, like 5 years of actually going through that process. And it's where a lot of people, like the messy middle, it isn't a small piece of time. It is a lengthy piece of time. And it then throws everything that you know out about yourself. And when you really look at those constructed behaviors and the psychological aspects of it, it's not a quick process, and you really have to honor the process. And it comes up differently for different people. Like for me, if I have a realization about why I'm doing something, I can transmute it like that. But other people, it takes a long type of process. And different things work for different people. Some people are very somatic. And for me, I found that that's me. So that is like working with the body. So movement, dancing, breath work, yoga. But I hate yoga. Yoga makes me so angry.
I had one great guy gave me great advice. He says, there's a yoga for everyone. You just haven't found the right one yet.
For me, my understanding of yoga is it's a very individualistic practice. And then I have some very skinny, shouty person at the front telling me I need to touch my toes. I can't touch my toes. I'm tall. I've never been able to touch my toes. I've touched my toes once in my life, and it took me like 3 hours to get there because I was so determined I was going to do it. Like, it's just not for me. But again, it's about finding what's right for you. And just because yoga is good doesn't mean that it's bad for me. Like, it's just, I don't want to do it. I don't like it.
Which is fair play, I say.
Yeah. And this is where people get obsessed. They're like, and then especially the spiritual community, like they get obsessed with this one thing and it's the right thing. And there's so much marketing around personal development and spirituality now. Like, do this breath work and it will release all of your trauma. That's bullshit. And I'm going to absolutely call you out on that, because it's a layer by layer. And yes, breath work is amazing and it can access parts of you didn't even know existed. However, you don't understand from a mental perspective about what you're going through and what you're experiencing. It can release it, but it's this never-ending journey. It's like, and I think that I said it earlier, like the discernment in learning what works for you in any capacity. It doesn't have to be spiritual. It can be on an entrepreneurial journey. It can be on a mother journey. Like there's so much noise about being a parent. Like, this is the right way. You should breastfeed. You should do this. You should do that. Don't use nappies, or whatever it is. Whatever works for you in your circumstances. Like,
And I totally
you
agree.
know best.
Yeah.
Your child. It's your child at the end of the day. Like, you can take advice from others and you can listen, but what feels right for you? Where does it sit in your heart?
And there's no better judge of your own circumstances and where you are than yourself. And you have to go with that some days. What work for someone else may not work for you, or maybe it is the right thing, but it's just not going to work for you right now. And that's okay.
Exactly. And like I learned something the other day. I was at an event in London, and in the UK at the moment, we have the biggest food poverty in the whole of Europe. And that is nuts if you think about it. If you think about how much money is in this country and how many brilliant minds are in this country and how many brilliant entrepreneurs and brilliant ideas and products. And we are at the biggest food poverty ever. People are having to use food banks, like middle class people. And I don't like classism, but just for clarity of this conversation, like people that have had the ability to go to uni
Yeah.
are having to use food banks. It's crazy. But if you don't even honor your own circumstances and also understand the surroundings that you're in, this is where like we really need to start to learn our own selves. Like, is your ego too big to ask for help? And I've been there. I was homeless for a piece and I didn't have enough money for food and I didn't tell anyone. And I used to walk to go to lunch with my friends, knowing that they never eat all of their food. So I just used to eat their leftovers, but I didn't tell anyone. And then it was just such a heavy weight to carry. And once I just like broke down to a friend and she was like, can you just come and live with me, please? And I was like, yeah, yes, thank you. And she used to buy me food and she got me back on my feet. And that burden that I was carrying, I never needed to. And we put this pressure on ourselves so much for things that we think that they should be. And this is the first time we've lived like this. Before, you had community. You had full community. You had your parents, you had your grandparents, you had your partner's parents, you had your partner's grandparents, you had everyone around you helping. Like, there would be people always making food. There would be people always to look after the baby. We're so individualistic now that we feel like we have to do it all by ourselves, and it's an utter lie.
And the truth is, most of the time, if you open your heart up, most people want to help
Yes.
and they don't expect anything in return. That's a narrative that we've sold ourselves and a lie most of the time when most people give and they give selflessly, right?
Yeah. And like, imagine if you had a friend and you knew they couldn't afford lunch, you're 100% going to buy them lunch because that's the
Absolutely.
idea of being a friend. Like, it's a nice feeling to actually be able to do that for someone.
Yeah.
I think this is where also, like, if you have the capacity to earn more money, because then you can help more people. And
Yeah.
I think that this is where, like, we're really moving back into community, but it's that kind of juxtaposition point and that pivotal point where people know they need help, but they don't want to ask for help. And but why not? Like, it's an ego thing. And if you can really surrender that, like, that there are always people to help. And it's always a shame, like, when you see vets who are homeless, and they should never be homeless. Like, what they've gone through, but they can't ask for help because psychologically they've been trained not to. Like, it's you are the leader, and it is life or death in their mind because that's the process that they've been through. And this is why, for me, I think understanding your own psychology so that you can understand everyone around you is the most important thing you can ever do for yourself.
And understanding that money is not a bad word, like you've just said, Kirsty, because
Yeah.
the more you earn, the more you can help. And that is a key part, I feel, especially living in the UK. And I don't know if you would identify with this, that it's not allowed. You're not allowed to earn more money. That's not permitted. And if you do, then somebody else is in charge of how that's going to be spent. Whereas in reality, I'd like to earn more money and help the people that I want to help, if I'm honest.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I hear this so often, and I mean, it's old money patterns as well. And like, our parents' generation, they just came out of the war, so that it was a very different place. Like, there wasn't things available. And but now, I mean, overconsumption is crazy, but people would be happy to spend on mad things like
Totally.
yeah, and this is the thing. And again, coming back into spirituality, a lot of spiritual people see money as evil, but that makes no sense. Like, money is evil, money doesn't grow on trees, all of these old stories we were told. And the more money you have, the more you can impact. I mean, if you go for dinner and you have the ability to tip, you're going to tip, especially if your waitress, waiter was very lovely to you. You want to help that person because it just feels good to do so. And you feel good when you leave a tip, especially if the service is good. So if you have more money and you can do that all of the time, then that just becomes the normal for you. But you don't even realize the impact that you're having because you're likely to be eating out more. So then you're likely to be tipping more waiters and waitresses. You are likely to be influencing so many people beyond than you even know. And I follow Simon Squibb a lot, and I think that more people should really follow his narrative and follow that idea of the dream and how much impact can you have, because you never know how much impact you're going to have beyond a room. And I'd like to give you an example of that. So I was helping a friend with her retreats last year, and one of the ladies that came in March, she donates a percentage to Anak Kita, which is a charity in Bali that helps orphan babies and mothers. So it's still out. If you have a baby out of wedlock, it's still very frowned upon, and babies get left a lot across Indonesia, not so much Bali because it's more Buddhist than Muslim, but still in Bali it is a big issue. So all of the retreats and all of the events that she does, a percentage goes to Anakita. And we were sharing about this, and one of the ladies, she came to the retreat and she had been ignoring this guy that wanted to date her for a while. And after the retreat, she felt like she'd opened her heart and she started dating this guy. And she is Turkish living in Dubai, and he is Mexican living in Dubai. And he, off of the back of hearing that story of how the abandoned babies and mothers, saw that she was in her heart, and he wanted to donate. So now donates to an orphanage in Mexico. And yeah, so just you never know the impact you're going to have. And that's a beautiful example. And we were lucky enough to find out about that example. But 9 times out of 10, you never have any
No.
awareness of the impact that you are having on someone.
You don't know what the domino effect is because most of the time no one will say, they'll just go off and do it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And you never know, even just smiling at someone, you don't have to have money, by the way. It's not, yes, money is an amplifier, but you don't have to have money to have that kind of impact. Smiling at someone can really change their day. Giving a compliment. I mean, when I was younger, I learned very quickly that giving a compliment was a good thing. And I used to do it more in a like manipulative way. Like I would always compliment the bar person, whether it was a bloke or a woman, because I wanted to be served first, and it worked. But then as I got older, I understood actually it's nice to give compliments and it's nice to receive them. So I every single day will give at least 2 people a compliment, and that is like a non-negotiable for me. And it's so natural to me now, I don't even know that I'm doing it. I still get people come up to me, "You said this about me one time," and I'm like, "Did I?" I don't even remember, but they will come up to me and be like, "That made me feel really good in that moment. I just wanted to say thank you." And it's such an easy thing that we can do that just can really change someone's day. And when you start to understand that you can have that kind of impact on people, your world also starts to reflect that back to you. And you also start to receive more in different capacities.
I totally agree with you completely. And I am the kind of person that always will look for the good in someone or something, no matter what it is. And my kids are always like, Mom, I don't know how you have the ability to do that. I'm like, sometimes you know what's going on for that person. You just got to cheer them up a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't. And that's the thing, that there is very, very, very few people on the planet that do bad things without something of having had happen to them, first of all. And it's the phrase hurt people is not true. It's hurt people hurt people. And it becomes a vicious cycle. And it's, as I said, I'm a believer in humanity. I believe humanity exists. I believe people are incredible. I believe people are resilient. I believe they are so loving. They just don't necessarily know how to be all of the time.
It's very interesting because you also say something else on the back of that. So you also say there's no such thing as healing or the truth.
Yes.
I'd love to know what you mean by that.
Again, the sky is example, this lovely blue sky behind me, of that's a great example of the truth. And the truth versus the truth, I really love that phrase, because you can research truth and you can look into truth and the universal truth, and people love seeking out the truth. But the truth only exists to you, and it only exists to your narrative. And again, when it comes to healing, like, your body is the most incredible pharmacy, healer, shaman, scientist that has ever been created. And if you really honor and look within yourself, there is no part of you that is missing. All of those experiences that happen to you happen for you. And how can you realize that you're whole? You don't need a specific practice to find yourself again. You're completely whole as it is now. And people, they seek healing and they seek truth, and it's completely within you. And if you allow yourself to feel, and if you allow yourself to sit with yourself long enough, you will discover that it's all within you. And I love Dr. Joe Dispenza, and for your listeners who don't know who he is, he's an incredible person who hosts week-long events, and it's all around the science behind meditation. And he will rightly say, it's nothing to do with me. It's nothing to do with what I'm teaching. You are the person who is going to change you. You are your own healer. Your personal reality is defined by your personality. And what we forget is we are the epicenter of it all. We are how we show up every day. We are our choices. We are our body.
Yeah.
We are our minds. We are our own creation. And healing is such a it's a fad word at the moment. Like, come and heal with me, come and heal your trauma, come and heal your mindset, come and heal your lost child, inner child, work, whatever it is. But there's nothing actually to heal. And when you realize there's nothing actually to heal, you show up from a whole place. And once you realize that you are whole, then everything else is an added bonus. You aren't looking for something to complete you, whether that's, again, everything that we've kind of mentioned, a child, a partner, a business. If you're always acting from wholeness, then you can give 100%. Whereas if you're seeking healing, or you're seeking truth, or you're seeking love, all three of them are kind of the same thing, then you're operating from a percentage that isn't 100%. So you're seeking for that to complete you, and it's not possible.
As we come to the end of this conversation, what's the one thing one of our listeners could do to get back to that truth, or if they've been in performance mode for years and they want to find what their truth is?
Decide if any of the things that we've said today resonate, and if they don't, bin them off. Just bin them off. Stop listening to things that don't resonate with you. Stop reading books to the end because you want to get to the end of the book. If you don't like it, if it doesn't make sense to you, just stop doing it. We put so much, like, that it has to be a complex piece of advice or a complex subject. It's just stop doing the things you don't like and start knowing the things you do and listening to yourself. And you, as I said, you can watch 100 podcasts and the 101st will tell you the same thing. And if it resonates, it's because that person was supposed to tell you. So if you take the world as if everything is speaking to you and for you, you will start to hear the things that is your truth.
That's very doable.
Yeah.
Very sensible, real life advice. Thank you, Kirsty. If any of our listeners want to know where to find you, where are you working on now? Where can we find you?
Somewhere in the world, doing something. I don't know yet. But yeah, you can find me online. LinkedIn is my favorite place or to connect because I'm on there every day. I have a recruitment company. So it's Kirsty with a Y, a Tait, Kirsty Tait. You will be able to find me.
All the links will be in the show notes anyway. Kirsty, thank you ever so much. I've really enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you.
Me too. Thank you so much, Disha.
If this episode supported you, share it with a woman you respect and want to lift up.
Join our free Trailblazers community, the space where high-achieving women finally feel met.
You'll find the link in the show notes.
Until next time, keep moving forward, keep listening to yourself.
And remember, you deserve support too.